The royal palace of Zolari floated high above the clouds of the council planet. It was made of shining crystal towers, golden bridges, and silver domes that touched the sky. Inside the tallest tower, Princess Zelva sat on her throne, listening to a long report from her science advisor, Lord Velm. He was an old, wise alien with glowing eyes and soft purple skin. He spoke slowly and clearly, reading from a glowing datapad. His voice echoed through the royal chamber, and according to recent findings, human beings from the planet Earth are biologically capable of reproduction throughout their solar year. Their mating behavior is not restricted by cycles or seasons. Princess Zelva blinked. What did you just say? Lord Velm paused. The humans can breed all year. The room went silent. The guards looked confused. Her handmaidens covered their mouths. Even the palace AI dimmed the lights slightly, unsure if it was a joke. Zelva stood up from her throne. Her silver robe shimmered in the light. That cannot be true. That is against nature. In human biology, Velm explained, their species does not follow the same patterns as us or most council races. They do not have limited fertility cycles. Their bodies, especially the females, can become fertile any time of the year. Zelva narrowed her bright green eyes. This sounds like propaganda. Lies to make them seem more powerful. Velm looked nervous. With respect, my princess, the data is from council-approved researchers. There is no doubt. Earth's people are different. Zelva turned away from the council table and walked toward the tall windows. Outside, ships moved between the clouds. She placed a hand on the glass. How can this be? She whispered. Even our strongest warriors must wait 2 years between cycles. Even the mighty Trekar race only breed twice in a decade. But humans, any time. She shook her head. No, I do not believe it. One of her handmaidens spoke softly. Princess, the Galactic Council believes it, and they have allowed humans to join the Life Sciences Division. That is why the report was sent. Zelva turned back to Velm. Summon a human. I want a real one. I want him to explain this madness to my face. Velm bowed. Yes, your radiance. 2 days later, the great doors of the royal hall opened with a quiet hiss. The floor was polished black stone, and the ceiling was a dome of stars. Standing at the center of the room was a tall man with short dark hair, clean clothes, and a calm smile. He looked completely relaxed, even surrounded by guards, nobles, and alien scientists. His name was Ambassador Jake Carter, a representative of Earth and the United Terran Alliance. He bowed politely. Princess Zelva, I'm honored to be here. Zelva did not smile. She looked him up and down. So you are the human. Jake chuckled. Guilty. You may rise, she said. We have received your species reports, and I must say, they are difficult to accept. Jake tilted his head. Let me guess, the reproduction part? The court gasped. Such direct speech was rare in the palace, but Jake didn't seem scared. Zelva walked down the steps toward him. Her robe flowed behind her like mist. You claim your kind can breed all year, every month, without waiting, without cycles. Jake shrugged. Yes, that's correct. How? She asked. Jake smiled. Well, we just can. It's part of our evolution. On Earth, we had no idea that most species in the galaxy were so limited. Zelva narrowed her eyes. I think you're lying. Jake laughed softly. You're not the first to say that. Zelva stepped closer. Do you expect me to just believe these words? Jake met her eyes. No. I expect you to see the truth for yourself. The princess raised an eyebrow. Explain. Jake pulled out a small hologram device. It floated in the air, showing images of Earth, cities full of people, families with children, women expecting babies, hospitals, schools, playgrounds. Our population grows fast, he said. We are billions, and we don't have to wait for a moon cycle or a climate shift. We live, we love, and we grow, year-round. Zelva looked at the images. Her face showed doubt, but also curiosity. Anyone can show pictures, she said. I want real proof. Scientific and personal. Jake smiled. Then come to Earth. I'll show you everything. The court gasped again. An invitation to a planet from a human. and heard of. But Zelva surprised everyone. She said nothing for a long moment, then nodded. I accept your invitation. Jake bowed. You won't regret it, princess. She looked at him sharply. I better not. That night, in her private chambers, Zelva looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her handmaidens brushed her silver hair. Do you think humans are really that strange? One of them asked. Zelva stared at her own face. Strange, yes. Dangerous, maybe. But if what he said is true, then they are something more. She touched her chest softly. They are free. Princess Zelva stood at the window of her royal cruiser, watching the stars move past. The ship glided through space quietly, heading toward Earth. Her guards and handmaidens stayed silent, respecting her deep thoughts. She had never left Solari. Space before, now. She was traveling to a strange blue planet filled with a species that claimed to breed year-round. It still sounded impossible to her. Beside her, Lord Velm whispered, Are you sure this is wise, Princess? Earth is not part of our empire. Zelva replied without turning. That is why I must see it myself. If the humans are lying, I will expose them. If they are telling the truth, then the galaxy must be changed. After 2 more days of quiet travel, the ship reached Earth orbit. It looked beautiful from space-green lands, deep blue oceans, swirling white clouds. Even Zelva, who had seen many planets, felt a little breathless. It's alive, she whispered. Soon. They were cleared for landing. The cruiser touched down in a peaceful valley near a human science center. Birds flew overhead. Trees moved gently in the wind. It was early morning on Earth. Ambassador Jake Carter was waiting with a smile and fresh flowers. He handed them to Zelva. For you, princess. These are called daisies. They're harmless, he added. Seeing her confused expression, she took them carefully. Thank you. I have never been greeted with a plant before. Jake laughed. Then Earth is full of surprises. He guided her through a quiet path toward the science center. Along the way, Zelva saw families walking together, some pushing small children in rolling chairs. She noticed 2 women holding hands and laughing. A man passed by with a baby on his shoulders. Why are there so many young ones? She asked. Jake glanced at the children. Because we don't have to wait years to create them. Humans can start families when they're ready. Some have many children. Some choose none. Zelva frowned. And your people accept this? Jake nodded. It's normal here. Inside the science center, human doctors and researchers welcomed her. They showed her machines, charts, and medical records. She saw pictures of pregnant women from every month of the year. One female doctor, named Dr. Hannah, explained kindly, Human fertility is continuous. There is no single season. That's why our population is over 10 billion across Earth in colonies. Zelva looked at the screen closely. So, there is no rest, no pause. Dr. Hannah smiled. There is rest when we choose it, but nature does not force it. Zelva thought deeply. This idea was completely new to her. On Solari, females had to wait 2 years for the next cycle. Romance was planned, controlled, and rare. Here, it seemed like a normal part of life. Later, Jake took her on a ride through a human city. She sat beside him in a smooth hovercar. People waved as they passed. Some shouted greetings. One child pointed and said, Mommy, is that an alien princess? Zelva didn't know whether to laugh or frown. Jake smiled. They're excited. Most people here have never seen a real alien before, and I have never seen so many. Couples, she replied. They look so free. Jake looked thoughtful. On Earth, we believe love should not be locked behind rules or calendars. It's messy, yes, but it's real. They stopped at a park filled with families, young couples, and older people walking hand in hand. Zelva watched a group of kids playing near a fountain. A girl about 8 years old ran up to her. Are you a queen? Zelva bent down. No, I'm a princess. The girl smiled wide. You look like a space fairy. Jake chuckled. That's a new one. As they walked away, Zelva said, That child wasn't afraid of me. Humans are curious, Jake replied, and kind when they want to be. That evening, she returned to her guest's quarters. She stood on the balcony. holding a datapad filled with human studies and facts. The stars twinkled above her. She whispered to herself, everything I believed is being challenged. A soft knock came at the door. Jake stepped inside. He held to warm drinks. Thought you might want to try hot chocolate, he said. She raised an eyebrow. What is chocolate? He handed her the cup. Magic. She sipped it and her eyes widened. This is forbidden level pleasure. Jake laughed. Told you? They sat together on the couch, watching the Earth night sky. Why are you really here, princess? Jake asked softly. She looked at him. I wanted to prove you wrong. I thought your people were lying. I thought humans were arrogant. And now, she hesitated. Now, I think your people are strange, but also full of life. Jake looked at her gently. We may be strange, but sometimes being different helps the galaxy grow. Zelva didn't respond, but for the first time in her life, she didn't want to go back home so soon. End of part 2. The next morning, Princess Zelva entered the Human Research Center again. This time, she came alone, wearing a simple gray robe, without her crown or guards. She looked serious but calm. Dr. Hannah greeted her with a smile. Good morning, princess. Are you ready for more information? I want tests, Zelva said. I want data, numbers, proof. I don't want just stories. Dr. Hannah nodded. Of course. We have prepared some genetic comparisons and biological charts for you in a bright lab. Zelva sat with a team of human scientists. They showed her digital displays of DNA samples, hormone levels, and fertility cycles. She watched closely, asking many questions. How is this possible? She said, pointing at one chart. You mean the body does not stop producing mating hormones? That's right, said a young researcher. Our species evolved this way. It helped us survive on a dangerous planet. Zelva frowned. Your planet forced you to breed faster. In a way, Dr. Hannah replied. Earth was full of predators, diseases, and changing weather. We had to grow quickly to stay alive. The princess leaned back. On Zolari, everything is slow, calm, safe. That might explain why your species didn't need fast reproduction, Dr. Hannah said kindly. Different environments create different biology. Zelva stared at the screen. It made sense, but it still felt strange to her. Then she asked, and what about your feelings? Are they also always active? The scientists exchanged awkward glances. Dr. Hannah smiled. That's not exactly science, but humans can feel attraction anytime. Not just during cycles. Zelva's cheeks turned slightly purple, a sign of Zolari embarrassment. She looked away. Later that day, Jake took her to a university lecture hall. Human students sat in rows, watching a live lesson about human history and culture. The professor welcomed Zelva and asked if she wanted to say something. She stood slowly and walked to the front. I come from a world where love is limited by time. She began. Where families are planned by dates and cycles. But here, I see something different. The students listened silently. I see couples walking together, holding hands, laughing. I see children born in all months. And I feel, she paused, I feel confused, but also curious. One student raised her hand. Princess, what do you think about human emotions? Zelva thought for a moment. There, loud. You show everything on your faces. You don't hide your joy or your sorrow. Jake chuckled from the back of the room. She's not wrong. After the lecture, a small group of students gathered around Zelva. They showed her pictures of their families and explained their traditions. She listened carefully. One girl said, My mom had me in spring. My sister was born in winter. Mayan had twins in summer. Zelva shook her head. On Zolari, such things would be impossible. That evening, Jake invited her to a quiet garden behind the science center. There were glowing lanterns, soft music, and flowers that opened. Only at night, this place is peaceful, Zelva said. It's my favorite spot, Jake replied. When Earth gets too noisy, I come here. They sat on a stone bench. The stars above twinkled like diamonds. Zelva looked up. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by your people's freedom? Jake thought for a moment. Sometimes. But freedom also gives us the chance to love deeply. To choose. She looked at him. We don't choose. On Zalari, pairings are arranged based on cycle timing and genetics. Jake raised an eyebrow. That sounds efficient, but also kind of sad. Why sad? She asked. Because love isn't just a system, Jake said. It's a feeling, a choice. Sometimes it makes no sense, but it changes everything. Zelva was quiet for a long time. Then she asked softly, have you ever chosen love? Jake smiled gently. Once, a long time ago. It didn't last, but it was real. She nodded. I've never had the chance to choose. Never even thought about it. Until now. Jake looked at her, but said nothing. The wind moved gently through the garden trees. The next day, Zelva returned to the lab for one final test. She agreed to provide a small sample of her blood to compare Zalari DNA with human DNA. The process was quick and painless. As the machines worked, Dr. Hannah said, "You're very brave. Princess, many leaders would never do this. I need to understand," Zelva replied. "My people fear what they do not know. I must learn before I return." When the results came in, the screen showed a detailed chart of how different Zalari and human biology were. But there was also something unexpected. Dr. Hannah said quietly, "Your genetic code has a hidden potential." Zelva looked at her. "What do you mean?" "Zalari DNA has a dormant gene. It's inactive now, but with enough changes over time, your species could become like humans." Zelva's eyes widened. "You mean evolution?" Dr. Hannah nodded. "Yes, in the far future, your people could gain year-round fertility if you embrace change." Zelva stood in silence, staring at the screen. A new idea formed in her mind. Not just curiosity now, but purpose. She whispered, "Maybe this visit was more than a lesson. Maybe it's the start of something bigger." From the doorway, Jake said, "You came here looking for proof. Did you find it?" She turned and smiled just a little. "Yes, and more than I expected." The sun was setting over Earth's distant mountains, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. Princess Zelva sat quietly in a small cabin near the science center. Her mind was full of new ideas and strange feelings she didn't yet understand. Jake knocked on the door and stepped inside with 2 cups of warm tea. "I thought you might like this." Zelva took a cup and smiled faintly. "Thank you." They sat across from each other at a wooden table. Outside, the wind moved the leaves. Gently, "I want to ask you something," Zelva said after a pause. Jake looked curious. "Anything. Your people. You said you choose love freely. But how do you do that? How do you know when it is real?" Jake leaned back, thinking. "It's not simple. Sometimes you don't know at first, but you feel it in your heart. It grows stronger over time. It's about trust, care, and wanting to be near someone." Zelva listened carefully. "On my world, we do not have such freedom. Our bonds are arranged for strength and harmony. Love comes later, if at all." Jake nodded slowly. "Sometimes love grows from duty, but sometimes it sparks from nothing, just a glance or a smile." Zelva's eyes flickered. "I have never felt such sparks." Jake smiled gently. "Maybe you just haven't met the right person yet." The princess looked down at her tea. She felt a flutter she couldn't explain. Over the next few days, Zelva explored Earth's culture more deeply. She watched humans celebrate festivals, full of music, dance, and laughter. She tasted foods with flavors she had never imagined. She walked in parks where lovers kissed freely beneath the trees. One evening, Jake invited her to a quiet concert. The music was soft and warm, with voices singing about hope and dreams. Zelva sat beside Jake, feeling something new inside her chest, a strange, warm feeling she thought was only a myth. During the concert, a young couple stood near them. They held hands tightly, eyes shining. Zelva looked away, feeling suddenly shy. After the show, Jake turned to her. "You're thinking about something." She nodded slowly. "I am learning that humans do not only live with their bodies, they live with their hearts." Jake smiled. "And sometimes the heart chooses before the body does." Zelva thought of her people, where cycles decided everything. "This is freedom," she whispered. One morning, Zelva woke to a message from Lord Velen. It said the Zalari Council wanted her to return. They were worried about her long stay. She sighed. They did not understand why I must stay. Jake came into her room. You don't have to go back yet. She smiled sadly. I know, but I must face my people soon. He reached out and gently touched her hand. When you return, tell them what you have learned. Zelva looked at his hand, then into his eyes. I will, for the first time. She allowed herself to feel hope. That afternoon, they walked through a forest near the science center. The sun filtered through the leaves in golden beams. Birds sang quietly. Zelva stopped and looked at Jake. Tell me about your relationships. Not politics, not science, real life. Jake smiled softly. I had a few, some brief, some long. But the one I remember most was with someone who never cared about cycles or timing. Just about being together. She looked at him curiously. Did you love her? Yes, Jake said. Very much. Zelva's cheeks colored again. What happened? Jake looked away. Sometimes love doesn't last, but it still changes you. She nodded slowly. I think I am beginning to understand. They walked on in silence. The quiet forest wrapping around them. Days passed, and Zelva felt her heart opening. She was not just learning about human biology anymore, she was learning about human emotion. One evening, as they watched Earth's twin moons rise in the sky, Zelva turned to Jake. Would you teach me how to love? She asked softly. Jake's eyes widened, then smiled warmly. I'd be honored. She laughed lightly, a sound like music. For the first time, Zelva allowed herself to imagine a life beyond duty and cycles of life where love could be chosen freely, every day. Days had passed since Princess Zelva's quiet request to learn about love. The soft glow of Earth's morning sun filled the room where she and Ambassador Jake sat, sipping tea and sharing stories. Jake smiled warmly. Love isn't easy. It's not just feelings. It's patience, trust, and sometimes sacrifice. Zelva listened, her green eyes thoughtful. On Zalari, we do not speak much of sacrifice. We value harmony and duty. Sometimes, love asks us to break our routines, Jake said, to take risks for someone else's happiness. Zelva's heart beat a little faster. She realized she was ready for something new. That afternoon, Jake invited Zelva to visit a human family. They lived in a cozy home with warm colors, laughter, and smells of fresh bread. The family welcomed them with open arms. There was a mother, father, and 3 children, each full of energy and smiles. Zelva watched as the family shared stories and jokes. She saw how their love was shown in small acts, helping with chores, comforting tears, and sharing meals. One child, a little boy with bright eyes, asked, Princess, do you have a family? Zelva smiled softly. Yes, but far away. The boy nodded, understanding. Maybe you can make a new family here. The thought surprised her. Later, Jake took her to a quiet hill outside the city. The sky was painted with pink and gold. As the sun set, why do humans watch sunsets? Zelva asked. Jake shrugged. Sometimes. It helps us feel connected to each other and to life. They sat together, the silence comfortable. Suddenly, Zelva reached out and took Jake's hand. He looked at her, surprised but gentle. Thank you, she said, for showing me more than science, for showing me the heart. Jake smiled. You don't have to thank me. You teach me too. Their hands stayed linked as the stars appeared above. The next days were a mix of laughter, learning, and quiet moments. Zelva found herself thinking about Jake more often, about his kindness, his honesty, and the way he looked at her. One night, she confessed, I never believed love could be this strong, this simple, this free. Jake took her hand again. It's the human way. But Zelva also knew she would soon have to return to Zalari, where her people waited with questions and doubts. Before leaving Earth, Zelva and Jake visited a hospital where expectant mothers prepared for birth. She watched the care, the hope, and the joy in the room. It is beautiful, she said softly. Jake nodded. Life on Earth is precious because we choose to live it fully every day. Zelva looked at him with new respect. I will tell my people the truth, she said, about your freedom, About your love, Jake smiled. And maybe, one day, your people will understand. The Zolari royal ship rose into Earth's sky with a soft hum, leaving behind blue oceans, green fields, and one very quiet human standing alone on a hill. Princess Zelva looked through the window of her private chamber. Her hand rested on the glass as Earth became smaller behind her. Jake Carter's face stayed in her mind, his smile, his words, his warmth. She had come to Earth to prove humans were lying. But now, she was leaving with something more powerful than data. She was leaving with the truth and with something new growing inside her heart. When she arrived back on the council world, her people were waiting. The tall crystal towers of the Zolari Palace shone in the morning light. The guards bowed as she stepped out. Her handmaidens looked at her face and saw something different. Something had changed. She walked straight to the High Council chamber, where the 12 elder voices of Zolari tradition waited. They bowed their heads. "Welcome back, Princess Zelva," she bowed in return. "I bring my report." They asked her many questions. "Are humans truly as strange as they claim?" "Yes," she answered, "but not in the way we thought." "Do they really reproduce without cycles?" "Yes," she said. "Again, their biology allows it." The elders whispered among themselves. Some seemed shocked, others doubted her. But she continued, standing tall. "They are not like us. They do not wait. They do not fear emotion. They live with open hearts." One elder frowned. "You speak like you admire them." Zelva nodded. "I do." Gasps filled the chamber. "They love not by command, but by choice," she said. "They do not wait for seasons. They love today, tomorrow, and every day after." "But is that not dangerous?" Another elder asked. "What if emotion overpowers reason?" She looked at him gently. "Then it teaches us something. On Earth, love is not weakness. It is strength." The head elder stood. His voice was heavy. "And what do you suggest, Princess? That we become like humans?" She paused. "No," she said clearly. "I suggest we learn from them, later, in her private garden." Zelva walked barefoot across the cool stone path. The air smelled of soft Zolari flowers. But her thoughts still floated back to Earth. Suddenly, a small voice interrupted. "Her, Princess?" It was her youngest handmaiden, Vera, a gentle girl, no more than 16 seasons old. "Yes, Vera?" Zelva asked. "Is it true what they say?" The girl asked shyly. "That humans can love any time?" Zelva smiled. "Yes, it is true." Vera's eyes sparkled. "That sounds wonderful." "It is," the princess said. "But it's also hard. It needs courage. Do you think we Zolari will ever learn to love like that?" Zelva looked at the sky. "I think we already started, too." Days later, she stood before her people in the Great Hall of Learning. It was time to share her journey publicly. The hall was full. Nobles, scholars, students, citizens. She walked to the center and raised her voice. "I went to Earth with doubt. I believed the humans were dishonest." She paused, letting the silence grow. "But I was wrong." Murmurs rose across the room. "I found a people who live with feeling, who raise families not with schedules but with joy, who welcome change and grow through emotion." She smiled. "They do not fear love. They do not fear connection. They are brave, not only with their minds but with their hearts." A child in the crowd asked, "Are they better than us?" Zelva shook her head. "No, they are different, but their way is beauty." A teacher asked, "Then what do we do with this knowledge?" Zelva spoke clearly. "We begin something new. A program, a partnership. We study together. We listen. We learn." The room grew quiet. Then slowly applause began, and it spread. 1 week later, the first human guests arrived on Zolari soil. Scientists, teachers, even some families. Jake Carr was among them. When he stepped off the ship, Zelva was waiting. He smiled. "Permission to visit your world, Princess." She smiled back. "Only if you stay a little longer this time." He stepped closer. "How long?" She looked into his eyes. "Maybe all year round." Jake laughed. "Now that's a human answer." They walked together through the palace garden. Zelva took a deep breath. "You showed me something more powerful than any technology. Jake tilted his head. What's that? She touched his hand gently. That love doesn't need permission. He nodded. And hearts don't follow calendars. As the garden flowers bloomed around them, and stars rose in the sky above, a new chapter began for both their worlds. Not just science, not just politics, but something greater. Something human, something free, something true.